a magia do futebol. Somos diferentes, mas torcer nos faz parecidos. Não importa se você assiste com a camisa da sorte, no bar com amigos ou em casa na poltrona.
Preparou, vai bater, é gol! Gol!
Se você é o que grita mais alto, o que só comemora depois do replay, cada um torce do seu jeito. Coca-Cola, torcer é pra todos.
Olha o contra-ataque aí, vem que vem o time avançando rápido pela meio de campo. Bola dominada no pé do camisa 10. Ele vai pra cima, passou pelo primeiro, passou pelo segundo. Invadiu a grande área, vai chutar. Bateu, é gol! Que golaço, minha gente!
A experiência de futebol mais autêntica já criada pros games. Junte-se no 5x5 Rush, a nova maneira de jogar com os amigos e leve seu clube pra vitória. EA Sports FC 25. Dê tudo pelo clube. Já disponível.
Meu nome é Cairo Santos e eu sou o kicker e único brasileiro jogando na NFL. Cada chute, cada jarda conquistada, cada passo me levou para mais perto dos meus sonhos. Agora, a cada R$200 em compras com seu Visa cadastrado, você tem a chance de ficar mais perto do sonho de assistir ao Super Bowl 59. E usando o seu cartão de débito, você ainda concorre a prêmios diários de até R$1.000. Não importa o tamanho do seu sonho, dê o primeiro passo. Visa, apoiando seus passos aonde você quiser chegar.
Não é tempo técnico, mas é intervalo aqui no podcast. Já imaginou se seu time tivesse um seguro para não perder nunca? Pois é, isso não existe. Mas com a Zurich Seguros, quem não perde nunca é você. Na Zurich Seguros, os planos se adequam às suas necessidades em qualquer momento da sua vida. Seja seguro de auto, residência, vida e muito mais. Diferente de alguns times, na Zurich Seguros você pode confiar. Para saber mais, acesse zurich.com.br ou consulte seu corretor.
And welcome back to the Scanning Penguin Network, everyone. It's Robbie here once again, joined by Snail. And we're doing a little late, but better late than never, recap of the Penguins game against the Calgary Flames on Tuesday evening. It was, of course, a pretty good hockey game. The Penguins looked very good at points in this game. It ended up being, though, a 4-3 overtime loss to the Flames in Calgary, a late night for those of us on the East Coast. But the Penguins do escape the point, but I think Penguins fans were left wanting a bit more out of this game, Snail. So before we get into the actual hockey, how are you doing on this Thursday?
Doing good. It's a beautiful fall day out here in the Pacific Northwest. It's I was hoping that there was a Penguins game tonight, and then I looked at the schedule and there's not. So I don't know, just kind of an odd day out here, honestly. It's I don't like when the Penguins are out west. I like my Penguins at 4 p.m. Pacific, and now I got to wait until the later games. So I'm not used to that schedule, and I don't like it too much, I'll be honest with you. And but yeah, man, how are things out there in Pittsburgh?
Things are it's a beautiful day. Things are pretty good out here as well. Beautiful sunny day. Temperatures in the mid-50s, so very fall-like out here today. But I agree with you. I like the Penguins at my 7:30 time. It gets a little late out here when it comes to late Western games. It gets a little late. That's why we're recording this a few days later. But the Penguins, this was a hockey game, and again, we talked about. We'll start with the big news. Was the goaltending situation once again? Alex Nedeljkovic gets the start, his second of the year, second in a row. Somebody I saw on Twitter before this game said the last 15 games that Alex Nedeljkovic has been healthy for, he has started. So that
does that tell you something, Robbie?
That should tell you something, but what I think tells me more is, once again, Yoel Blomqvist was the backup goaltender behind Nedeljkovic in this game, meaning Tristan Jarry, for a second straight game, was a healthy scratch up in the press box.
Whew, boy, if that isn't dude, not the headline I think we all thought we'd be kind of tracking this early in the season. No. You know, I think there were a lot. I think when you get past the milestone markers for Sid and Gino, I think there was bigger things on the plate, like Rutger McGroarty and how he was going to play, and how does Puljujarvi fit into this lineup, and how does Letang and Carlson fit in together on the top power play unit. But no, it's it's wow, that's an indicting stat too with the one you read off about Ned. The last 15 games that he's been healthy for, he has in fact started. I mean, dude, he's your Sullivan looks up and down his roster and he goes, "That's our goalie."
Yeah, and just how much different things would be if Alex Nedeljkovic did not get injured during training camp. I mean, a huge what if moment for the Penguins right now is if he doesn't get hurt. Blomqvist is never there to start the beginning of the season, and who knows what the goalie situation is right now. But Nedeljkovic comes into this game. He gets to start again, and the Flames jump out to a 1-0 lead in the first period. Rasmus Andersson makes it 1-0. Second period, though, power play comes through. Brian Rust, his second of the season. Crosby and Carlson get the assists on this one. And then the third period, then the Penguins do get the lead. Early in the third, it is Snell's 31 goal scorer, Rickard Rakell, his fourth goal in 8 games. So he's back on that 41-42 goal pace right now with 4 goals through 8 games this season. But then Mackenzie Weegar knots it up at 2-2. And then maybe the player of the game. He didn't get a star, but maybe the Penguins' best player in this game, of all people, Noel Acciari, who just was a dog.
Oh my God!
Minutes. Well,
I fell in love with Noel. I liked Noel Acciari's game. I fell in love with Noel Acciari in this. When there was nothing going for the Penguins, I don't know, Robbie, if you watched the whole game, but there were points in this game where the Penguins were a tough team to watch. Every time Acciari was on the ice, he was doing what he's getting paid to do out there, and that's be just he's just this. He's not massively tall, but he's built like a football player, dude. Like he could play on a lines for some team. And I fell in love with him during this game, and I was so stoked to see him get rewarded with a goal because he was all over it. I was yelling at the TV, put him up on Sid's line because the way he was going. I was loving Noel Acciari's game against the Flames.
I think easily his best game as a Penguin.
As a Penguin, yeah.
He gets the go-ahead goal with just over 6 minutes left in the third period. It's 3-2.
How did they not ice? How was it not over after that?
It should have been over.
I was so pissed off.
The Penguins do not protect third period leads anymore. A bunch of mistakes, bad clears, icings, losing faceoffs, and Nazem Kadri gets the tire with the game or the even up goal with about 45 seconds left. That ties it at 3.
He's a pain in the ass wherever he plays. Nazem Kadri's been a pain in the ass when he was in Toronto, when he was in Colorado. Remember in Colorado, he had a broken finger, a deep laceration to a finger, and he scored a game-winning goal even to get them to the cup. That guy's been a pain in the rear since he's stepped on the ice.
Yeah, Colorado's never been the same since he left.
No, they haven't.
Without Gabe Landeskog, I'm pretty sure that they would like Nazem Kadri on that team now. But
they should have paid him. They should have just paid him.
They should have, and they didn't. And Calgary did. And again, Calgary hasn't been great, but Nazem Kadri is still a very solid hockey player. He ties it at 3. No goals in overtime during the 3-on-3. Into the shootout. The shootout goes 6 rounds. The Penguins actually hold a lead after one round of the shootout. Rakell, again, cannot stop scoring. But then Anthony Mantha ties it up. Rasmus Andersson, a big night for him. He puts the Flames on the brink in the third round, but Brian Rust comes through. And then it is zeros on the board until Justin Kirkland scores to make it 3-2. And then Evgeny Malkin is stopped by Dustin Wolf to end the game. So the Penguins do get a point, but the shootout woes continue, though they did score 3 times. You probably like a save, or scored twice, sorry. You'd probably like another save in there, but they get a point. They should have had 2. You got to find a way to close those games out, and unfortunately, they did not in this one as the Flames, who remain hot. The Flames have
that's another thing.
5-0-1. They have registered points in every game they played. So, Calgary is on a roll to start this season. The Penguins are not, but a game that the Penguins should have not only walked away with more than a point, they should have really handed Calgary its first regulation loss in this one.
Well, yeah, just to go back to what you said about Calgary being hot, one thing that I needed to kind of tell myself in the mirror after this loss was that, it's a West Coast trip early in the season. Usually the Penguins don't go out west until much later, and then they've either established whether they're a wagon or they're not. Winnipeg undefeated in the regular season. So, I mean, the Penguins played good. I'm telling myself this in the mirror as I'm steaming after the game. I'm telling myself, the Winnipeg Jets are rolling right now. No one can beat them. They're incredible to start this season. And they've got good players. I mean, I feel like we write off Winnipeg so often because no one wants to play there. It's Scheifele, it's Kyle Connor, it's Nikolai Ehlers, and it's Hellebuck. Their back end's kind of weak. But that's a good team, dude. So it's like, you know what? They lost to a good opponent. And then this isn't the Flames of, February last year. This is a Flames team, like you said, that is absolutely rolling right now. They are, are they 5-0? 5-0-1. So, dude, they're giving every team that comes up against them the business. I think that they're kind of playing with a chip on their shoulder a little bit. They kind of have that vibe. And, Rasmus Andersson, unreal player. If we ever get questions about underrated players, underrated stars, Rasmus Andersson might be on that list. Great defenseman. Mackenzie Weegar's on that list too. He was on the score sheet. Nazem Kadri, like I said, just a pain in the rear to play against, and no matter where he is, he can score, he can get under your skin. Good 200-foot player. So, go into the shootout against this team with the way that they've been playing. I would like to see them ice that game though with the Achari goal, like just the way I think that they deserve. They do this in Toronto. They have the winometer. Did they deserve to win that game? And I hate that. The Penguins, but I will say I thought the Penguins deserved to win that game. But dude, it's late third period leads. I don't know what it is if this team just loses all confidence, but the puck just starts pinballing around and it just always somehow finds its way in the back of the net, and it happened again. So, but to my point, this team is a good team, and the fact that they at least got a point, I'll be happy with. Robbie, you said, I believe, if they come away with just a point or something like, did you say a win or a point on this Western trip?
They need a win. I think they need, and again, if they can scrape a point out of Edmonton or Vancouver, I mean, technically that would equal to a win. But I mean, if you're getting to a point in these games with overtimes, you got to try to snag a win, just outright. Whether it be in overtime or regulation. So if you're getting to overtime against Vancouver or Edmonton, I think you got to try to do everything you can to get an extra point out of that. 2 points from this road trip now doesn't feel satisfying enough. Unless they go out and they lose both of those games in overtime, maybe we feel a little bit different about it. But if there are 2 overtime losses after blown third period leads, it can't be acceptable. When you're a team that is going to be scrapping for literally every point to make the playoffs, these points matter. We've seen it in the past years where they've missed by a 1 point or 2 points, and you go back and think of all the games where they could have easily picked up those points if they would have just held on to a lead or found a way to find some success in overtime. And it's frustrating, but again, they did salvage a point in a tough place to play on a tough road trip early in the season. But yeah, there's silver linings and everything, but it's hard not to be a little frustrated after this game, knowing the Penguins could have had 2 in the bank in Calgary if they just would have played a little bit better in the final minutes.
Agreed. Yeah, it was that Calgary team. Ryan Huska, he used to be the coach actually for the Everett Silvertips out here in Western Washington. Seen plenty of games while he was behind the bench. He's got this team playing pretty well, and after selling off some pieces and kind of been in transition mode over the offseason, that they're kind of playing like they're like, we can be good. They could. I mean, folks in Canada are saying that they can be a middle of the pack team this year, maybe looking at a wild card, which I thought was wild. I thought they were in a rebuild. I thought they're supposedly in a rebuild, like entering the early stages of a rebuild. They got rid of Markstrom, they got rid of Lindholm. Well, Lindholm went to Vancouver last year, so last year they got rid of Zadorov, Lindholm, a couple other guys. I think Nazem Kadri is their first line center right now. I don't know where Huberdeau is. Huberdeau still plays in the NHL too, in case you forgot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They're playing hard. The Penguins, I wish the Penguins could take a little page out of their book and just, the Penguins have missed the playoffs the last 2 years by not very many points. And watching this game, there were times where I was like, God, where is the Penguins players digging in like some of these Flames guys are?
Yeah, and there were definitely some moments where it felt like, the Penguins carried play. They looked like the better team, but it just does not feel sustainable for an entire game right now, and that's really frustrating because the Penguins used to have those games where if they, even when they were up 2-1 at the beginning of the third period, that would mean pretty much the end of that game. That was they keep it play very conservative hockey. You kind of saw it against Montreal, just completely sucked all the hope out of a comeback in the third period against Montreal. Played maybe their best third period in quite some time, but against Buffalo and the Jets and now the Flames, some of those old habits have creeped back in, and it's costing the Pens in the standings.
Big time. After watching this game, the last thing I'll kind of say about it was, dude, I wonder about if it's, the Penguins are pretty far removed from their back-to-back cup years. It's the same coach. He's preaching the same system. Dude, the personnel, I was watching some of the defensive flaws, you might say, in this game. I was watching some of the forechecking, some of the mistakes in their offensive zone. Dude, I don't like to think that I took those years for granted at all because I thoroughly enjoyed them and I got so used to watching so many savvy veterans on that team. Dude, did we take for granted guys like Chris Kunitz, Trevor Daley? Yeah. Dude, Trevor Daley was sometimes running the power play. It wasn't even Chris Letang because he was injured so much too, but Trevor Daley was so good in his own zone and offensively. He had an absolute cannon. Dude, Matt Cullen in the bottom six, dude, such a savvy veteran. He made the right play 99% of the time. And he had that voice in the room too, where I'm not saying Sid's voice doesn't mean anything, because that's absolutely not what I'm saying, but you look at Chris Kunitz, who had four rings. You look at a guy like Matt Cullen, who had a couple rings. You look at a guy like Trevor Daley, who was just an excellent player for the entirety of his career, pretty much. You could always rely on him. Ron Hainsey never played a playoff game, but his presence on the back end at times, and his, what did he have over 1,000 games before he won a cup?
I don't know if it was before he won a cup. It was close.
Dude, Hornquist, never really a liability. He kind of had his assignments. Great, and he wasn't easily pushed around. God, dare I say Rob Scuderi even at times. I don't know. Just
Scuderi was very important during that 2009 Cup run.
He was very important. So I was watching the game and I was thinking, like, man, this team could use some of those, not like deadline acquisitions that put you over the top type players, but they're missing some of those voices in the room, like those savvy veterans that were around the Penguins team for so long. And I couldn't help but notice that, Robbie.
Yeah, again, if you look at those Cup teams, all those it makes more sense now in retrospect, 8-9 years later, when looking at those teams and just seeing all the pieces and how much of it has to come together. Another name, Justin Schultz, who's now playing over in Switzerland.
Dude, how did he not earn a contract?
When you're done, you're done, I guess. I don't know. Maybe he's hoping he can put together a good season over there and maybe grab on to a team either late in the season or next year. Connor Sherry, another member of those teams, was placed
smart player.
One of the smartest players. That's why he succeeded with Crosby. He never really had that spark after he left Pittsburgh, but he is now headed to the AHL after being placed on waivers by the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Sherry was placed on waivers?
Yeah, yesterday. Yesterday or Tuesday. One of the day. Yesterday or Tuesday. I can't remember exactly.
Wild.
Yeah, Sherry heads to waivers. So, yeah, if you look at that team, and that's why Brian Rust is still in the league. Brian Rust is a smart, in-the-room guy, smart player, plays with Crosby. That's why Chris Letang's still around. Even Fleury on those teams was not, especially in 2016, was not really a factor, but was still a massive
presence.
He could have been a completely toxic presence after being replaced by Matt Murray, but he put the team over himself and was an integral part of those two cup runs. Kunitz was the ultimate just guy. I mean, locker room guy, grit guy, could score. Pascal Dupuis, even though he could not play because of blood clots, hung around in 2016 until he retired. Mark Streit was on that 2017 team.
Yeah.
Who else? There's just so many guys that have their name on the cup from those teams.
Did they pick up Oduya, Johnny Oduya ever?
No, they never had Oduya. Daly broke his ankle. Didn't get to play in the cup final in 2016.
That's right.
Rehab came back and helped them. Needed basically all hands on deck without Letang. Brian Dumoulin.
Brian Dumoulin was their best defenseman that year.
But yeah, Brian Dumoulin would have been their best defenseman. Ben Lovejoy in 2016.
Oh, Ben Lovejoy was a great one too.
Yeah, was a part of the Simone Dupre trade, and everybody hated it, but was a major factor in helping them win that cup. And then obviously maybe the biggest glue of them all was Patrick Hornquist.
Absolutely, Patty Hornquist.
But yeah, it definitely feels like some of those players are missing from this iteration of the Penguins. But yeah, they're rebuilding kind of, but there's still guys that are showing up. Ricard Raquel's probably been their best player through 8 games, besides Evgeny Malkin.
Yeah,
just playing out of his mind. Brian Rust, I think once the goals start coming 5-on-5, they're going to start pouring in. Guys are chipping in. It's just the defense is still major problems on defense, but you take the point, you move on, and now we have Edmonton and Vancouver back to back. Will not be easy. Both teams that should be competing for a Stanley Cup. So we'll see how that all plays out.
Well, Edmonton is, they're doing what they did last year.
Yeah.
They can't. Zach Hyman has 0 points.
Yeah, he'll probably have like 5 goals on Friday night against the
that's right. Yeah, they'll put Blomqvist in, and he'll light him up for like a hat trick and like 2 apples, and they'll look like the Globetrotters of last year. But dude, if they can pull out at least a point or 2 over this next couple of days, I think if they go home with 2 or 3 points accumulative, I think we'd be happy.
Yeah, I think so. It's a tough road trip. I mean, they have swept it before, but it's a very difficult stretch of games. So I definitely could see them the vibes would be much better if they head home with an extra 2 or 3 points in the bank.
Is the Western Canadian road trip now the old California road trip?
I mean, they still make the California road trip. I just feel like this one's a little bit tougher. There's not as much California. You can hit the beach for a day, relax a little bit, sun shining.
God, they used to always put out those videos of them working out on the beach.
Yeah.
And Patrick Hornquist was shredded.
Yeah. And then you have like the Western Canada road trip where it's gloomy, cold, and Vancouver.
I meant more so like, remember like the California road trips of like the mid 2000s where that you'd go there and if you could walk away uninjured and with like at least a point, like difficulty wise, is now the Western Canadian road trip kind of like the new old Cali road trip?
I mean, I'd say the talent kind of shifted to Western Canada. I mean, San Jose in a big rebuild, Anaheim in a rebuild. LA can't really decide what it wants to be.
I don't know.
Again, like in the mid 2000s when they were winning cups, you absolutely hated playing them home or away. You knew it was going to be a brutal
Dustin Brown,
Brown, Kopitar, Jeff Carter, Doughty, Quick. But now like the power shifted to Western Canada. And I mean, you have your juggernauts up in Edmonton. Vancouver is a cup favorite. But now you have your Western California teams that are completely, I mean,
in transition.
Two of the 3 are rebuilding, and the third doesn't really quite. They're good, but we're not quite sure what they want to be, or what their outlook is. So, I definitely say it's been transition because you go from playing,
dude,
Dustin Brown and Anze Kopitar, Corey Perry, Ryan Getzlaf, Joe Thornton,
Pavelski.
Yeah, those teams that the power's completely shifted north to Western Canada. So yeah, I could see from a talent perspective, the Western Canada trip is much, much more difficult of a gauntlet to run than what we see in Western California right now.
Corey Perry, ironically, in both of those, but less of a factor now.
Oh yeah, Corey Perry, far, far from the player he was in his prime, obviously. But some news out of practice today. The Penguins are in Edmonton practicing. On the ice was Alex Nedeljkovic and Joel Blomqvist. Tristan Jarry did not practice.
Oh, boy.
So make of that what you will. Again, at some point, a friend of the podcast, Hunter Hodes, tweeted out, he said at some point it has to give. You can't sustain this forever.
Well, something has to change. And I think that, Robbie, I can't remember if we talked about this like in text or maybe just while we were on, maybe before the show, but like I think we were talking about, didn't we say like maybe by the end of this road trip, there would have to be some sort of clarity, like, you know, like whether it's like Jarry being put on waivers, even if he clears waivers, like something has to change after this road trip.
I thought that Nedeljkovic wasn't even going to be on the road trip. I thought they were just going to keep him getting action down in the AHL, and then they call him up and they're like, we're going to roll with 3 goaltenders. And so far they've maybe have 3 goaltenders in the roster, but only 2 have actually done much event, put on a jersey for a game. So now you have back-to-back this weekend, so you know you're going to get 2 different goalies starting this weekend. If Jarry's not one of them, what happens when they get back to Pittsburgh on Sunday?
They leave him in Vancouver.
Yeah, they just leave him.
They unpack his bags in Vancouver and say, thank you for your service.
Yes. Yes, they just revoke his passport, and he has to stay in Canada. But I mean,
I'm joking, of course, but like, dude, realistically, take the fans out of it. If your head coach looks at your 3-man goalie rotation and he keeps putting the same 2 guys out in games where you need points this early in the season, and that stat you read that is so indicting of Nedeljkovic starting essentially in the last, dating back to last year, the last 15, 16 starts, as long as he's healthy, he's the starting goaltender. That's your head coach telling you that I see 1 goalie right now that is playing, and I have 3 in front of me and one of them's going every time. Sully loves Ned.
Yep. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. But
dude, do you like the tandem Ned Yoel?
I'm more confident in it than anyone that includes Jarry. So yeah, Nedeljkovic, I think if you go for a 50-50 type split, I think you can find success that way. So yeah, I don't mind it.
I don't mind it either. I think at the beginning of the year, I said, like, it was a bold thing that I said. And I said, if you can find a way to get rid of Jarry's contract, I don't even mind if you pull Yoel out of the AHL prematurely and you just throw him to the Wolves. Like, give me Ned and Yoel and I'm down with it. So, wow. Yeah, that is interesting. And I almost feel bad for Jarry. Like, why you could have just like left him in Pittsburgh, but you're going to like drag him the whole trip. I guess there could be an injury, right?
Oh yeah. And being out there, if somebody would go down, it's easier than getting someone on a plane to get out there. You do have some of that reassurance, but at the same time, once you get home, you can't keep doing it.
So you're familiar. I hate the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I listen to so much hockey media. There's this one hockey podcast and they do this thing called Level of Concern, and it's pretty funny, but essentially they go like, what's this person's level of concern, whether it's a pint on the patio, meaning pretty chill. Yeah. And then the next one is 6 Busch Lights or 6 Bud Lights. And then the next one is Nick Cage in Leaving Las Vegas, where he says, you can never tell me to stop drinking. To take a page out of their book and totally steal this, what would Jarry's level of concern be that he is maybe never going to start? Let's not say this. Let me rephrase that. What's Jarry's level of concern now in Pittsburgh? The fact that he is potentially... he's lost his job.
I think it has to be at worst, or not even it's got to be in the middle, I'd say. Again, you don't know what's being said behind closed doors, but I think it's got to be the 6
Busch Lights.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't be chilling on the patio.
No.
Obviously at this point. I don't think it's, unless there's more going on that we don't know about. I don't want to say it's Nick Cage levels yet. But, I mean, as far as what we're seeing on the outside, I think it's got to be 6 Bud Light, 6 Busch Light levels of panic right now.
I would agree. It's got to be somewhere around that. There's no way you're chilling.
No.
I don't, and I feel like even seeing Jari when he was backing up, like, he doesn't look super stoked. I mean, how could you be?
Oh, I'm sure he's not, yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that is an interesting development out of practice in Edmonton. Dude, I was gonna ask you, kind of unrelated to the goalie. After watching this team in Western Canada, if you could make any changes, goaltending aside, to the roster, is there anybody that you're like, bench them, maybe move them down in the lineup, move them up in the lineup? Is there anything that you'd vouch for at this point, or do you like the way the team's kind of rolling as is?
I think overall the lineup is pretty solid. I don't have any major changes I think I would make. To be honest with you right now, I'm not. Again, it's just. I just think the lineup is what the lineup is at this point. The scoring is there. I mean, they had another 3-goal game. Defensively, yeah, you need to improve, but you don't really have anything that you can just throw in there to make it better on the shelf anywhere. So I think lineup-wise, even with its faults, it's probably your best lineup, what you saw on Tuesday night in Calgary.
Yeah, I think it's just so funny you can't do anything with Graves. I don't know why they haven't tried that Shea St. Ivany pairing on the bottom pair yet. I know that it's probably hard to bench Graves' contract, but dude, I've been curious about one thing, and I'm curious how you would feel about it. But with Bunting's struggles, instead of scratching him, because I think he's more valuable to your team in the lineup than not. What about Kevin Hayes on Gino's wing?
Yeah,
Kevin Hayes is like 6'5", and it's not like he can't score. The dude's got what, 3 goals on the season, 4 goals on the season.
So, yeah, but he only played 9 minutes of hockey the other night. I think Kevin Hayes has to see the ice more than that. Same with Puljujarvi, only about 10 minutes of ice time. Raquel only 13. Again, they did have the penalty kill was out there, probably more than you'd like. So you do have that to factor in as well. They had to kill off
Sid and
4.
Gino weren't even on the ice as much as they probably would. But
yeah,
but like, what about Kevin Hayes? Kevin Hayes has been a top 6 player the majority of his career. I think at one point he got traded and he was more of like a middle. He was a good third line offensive centerman, but he's got scoring touch. He's a big body. What about Raquel, Hayes, and Gino on a line?
Yeah, I'm all for mixing it up and just trying to find some kind of chemistry. Because I think the players you have are fine, but mixing it up and trying some different line combinations could definitely throw some juice onto the ice. So that I'm not against that at all.
That's the only thing I've been watching, these couple of games. And also, like, at what point are we going to put Eller on the first unit power play in the left dot or the right dot?
Lars Eller is just having an unbelievable season. Didn't record any points against Calgary, but it's just been playing really, really good hockey for the Penguins. Pretty remarkable, actually, how well he's been playing. I feel like he's playing better than last year. Right now,
so far,
which is crazy because he was good last year. He's playing. Somebody said they got 2018 Eller, which is fantastic.
Yes.
So yeah, Eller, as much as you can get him on the ice, the better. On the power play, he's a great penalty killer as well. So can win faceoffs. But yeah, keep him on the ice as much as possible.
I think so too. I'm like kind of half joking, but it's like, yeah, do we see him like on a power play at some point if he keeps scoring like he is? I mean, centering PP1. I don't know. I don't know if Sully has the stones to ever mix up the lineup like that. If maybe it's because I have Chell brain, but dude, right now on my NHL 19 game, I'll tell you right now, my first PP unit is I have Jordan Stahl centering my power play unit 1, right. And I have Dustin Byfuglien and Gino on the back end on their off wing sides, and I got Sid on the right wing, and I've got Raquel on the left wing. So just coming from my expertise of Chell, Sully shouldn't be so afraid to just throw whoever's like that hot hand with goaltending. Just throw whoever's hot out there on the PP1 and let them cook.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, you got to get when you're trying to score as many goals as possible to make up for some defensive liability.
Yeah, when you're outscoring your problems.
Yeah, you have to outscore your problems. Might not work always, but you got to at least try it sometimes. So yeah, nothing against that.
No. So as far as the Calgary game goes, disappointing loss for sure. Yeah. Every loss is disappointing when you're a Penguins fan, but like, you know, it's a good team and they're rolling. Hopefully they don't just like fall off a cliff and become like a bottom feeder in the next 10 days. Hopefully they're more for real, so this loss will feel a little bit better.
Yeah. You don't want to, like, I mean, if they would come back from the West and just completely fall, like with a bad, just say they lose these last two and then they come back and just really start to slide. I mean, Minnesota and Anaheim coming back home. Minnesota's never an easy game. Anaheim, they could be great. They could be bad. We don't know yet. And then Montreal again. You never know. So you just want to kind of get some points now and get home with some momentum, and hopefully it keeps rolling then going into November.
Hopefully. Also in other news, quickly before we switch over here or whatever, Phil Kessel is making his debut in the World Poker Tour Championship in Montreal. Yeah. So he's dialed in wearing a Yankees hat, just mean mugging everybody around him. It's crazy that he didn't get a contract. I think that you're telling me Anaheim wouldn't take a Kessel, or like Vegas would take a Kessel again, or
I just feel like after it fell apart at the trade deadline last year, that was pretty much the sign that either there's a lingering injury or he just does not have the skating ability anymore.
Maybe a little too much poker in the off season.
Maybe. I mean, again, I don't know what this contract he has with the poker tour, but he's the guy that has the about perfect poker face. It'll be interesting to see how he progresses and through these tournaments. But
would you have taken a flyer on Phil if you were Dubas? If you got to sit in his chair for a day and Phil called you, would you have offered him a two-way $750K?
Based on what we're seeing right now with the team, I don't know who you'd pull out with the way the forwards are playing, so probably not.
Yeah, God, who would you pull out? Who's on the fourth line? Achari, Hayes, and
Glass.
Glass has been playing pretty good. I don't know if I'd want to disrupt his development with the Pens, so he would be nice just to have him. Dude, get him coaching the PP.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The power play hasn't even been dreadful. I mean, the power play's been, I'd say, better. Just hopefully they can start converting. It hasn't been a complete tire fire of not even be able to possess the puck. So
Phil wouldn't even know how to coach a power play without him being in the equation.
Probably not,
he'd be like, well, I'm not there to give the puck to, so what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah, probably not.
All right, man. Well, are we doing mailbag, or are we saving that?
We don't really have any mailbag. We'll get some more mailbag next week. Just kind of wrapping this up, we have, again, this weekend, we have back-to-back with Edmonton and Vancouver Friday and Saturday. We'll figure out how we're going to do those recaps. Probably do maybe both Sunday or something like that, since it's a late back-to-backer. But, yeah, that's where we stand now. We're getting close here to the end of October. The Penguins are 3-4-1 after the loss to the Flames. Snell, anything else to wrap us up?
I don't think so, man. Just it's two juggernauts they got to face this weekend, and hopefully that brings the best out of this Penguins group.
That'd be really good if they could see these teams and say that they got a moment to prove themselves a little bit and show up and give some good competition against Edmonton and Vancouver. A good measuring stick and a good chance to maybe silence some doubters for a little bit to wrap up this road trip.
The defense needs to step up because that Edmonton Oilers team with the defensive gaffes that the Penguins have at times, they'll make mincemeat out of that. So Sullivan and Quinn better have their nose to the grindstone and figuring it out. So, anyways, that's all I got, buddy.
All right. So for Snail, I am Robbie. We will talk to you guys later this week with a recap of this road trip back to back coming up. Have a good weekend, guys.